My MIL kept inviting my husband's ex-girlfriend to every family event, including our wedding, where she showed up in a red dress knowing it was my bridal color, so I cut them all off for good. I'm 33F, and my husband, Tom, 35M, haven't spoken to most of his family for 3 years. In that time, we've had twin boys, which has made my mother-in-law, Mile, try to reconnect. There's a lot of history, but here's a quick summary of why Tom and I went no contact, and it all revolves around Tom's ex, Talia. I'm Indian American, and Tom is white. He comes from a pretty traditional small-town family. Talia was my MIL's best friend's daughter, and they were the small-town sweethearts everyone envied. However, when Tom and I met in college, we just clicked platonically. Honestly, I didn't even develop feelings for Tom until our 4th date. You could say he had an emotional affair, but nothing physical happened until after he broke up with Talia. Talia, of course, stayed in touch with his family because, according to my MEL, she was the daughter she always wanted. Keep in mind, Tom has a sister, but Talia is more of a homemaker, while my sister-in-law, SIL, who's an absolute angel, and I have always been more career-focused. Talia was at every holiday and family gathering from the very beginning. At first, I didn't mind. I was civil to Talia because my MIL made it clear Talia was important to her, despite Talia's obvious dislike and disrespect towards me. That all changed at my weddings. We had 2, and my parents paid for both. The dress code was simple. Besides the obvious no white or wedding party colors rule, nobody was supposed to wear red. I'm well aware that in some cultures, red means you've slept with the groom, but more importantly, red is a bridal color in my culture. I wore a red lehenga to my Indian wedding, and sorry, but she showed up in an eggshell off-white dress. Just so you know, white is worn at funerals in my culture to represent purity. My aunties and cousins were definitely talking, but I still had a blast since I really didn't care. I did care when she showed up to the American ceremony in a floor-length, apple red gown with a high slit. It was a bridesmaid's dress and it broke the dress code. My SEAL and Tom went to tell her to change. She left after a hushed argument and came back in a tea-length green gown. I guess she just wanted to see if she could get away with it. Apparently my aunties saw this too, which meant Talia was subjected to stares, whispers, and backhanded giggles throughout my entire American wedding. It embarrassed Talia, and she cried to my Emil, who then came to me and told me to keep my kind in line. To this, I crossed my arms and told her that maybe Talia should have stayed in her lane. She knew not to wear red for multiple reasons, mostly cultural, and it wasn't my fault my family was shaming her. It wasn't my fault she became cannon fodder for my gossiping family. Yes, I said those words because that's what my aunties are. Those were the consequences of her actions. Tom and Esil backed me up, and my Emil left with Talia before dessert. The next day, Talia posted on social media, crying about how she was exiled from her best friend's wedding because the bride was jealous. I posted back, telling her she wore red knowing how inappropriate it was, that her best friend was her ex, and not to sugarcoat what she did. I then tagged my MIL in a separate post with screenshots of Talia's post and told her this was the last straw. I had been disrespected by Talia since the very beginning of my relationship, and now that I was her daughter-in-law, she needed to keep Talia away from family events and holidays, since she didn't respect my husband and me. I didn't care if they still went on weekly shopping sprees or spa days. Just keep her away from Christmas and barbecues. Talia removed her post after being publicly called out. My MIL stuck to this compromise until 3 years ago. Talia showed up to Thanksgiving, which I was hosting, with a pie and a plastered smile. She said something along the lines of, "Mel invited me, and I wanted to make sure Mel can actually eat something since I know you tend to cook ethnic food." I slammed the door in her face, went over to my Emil, and told her she could leave with Talia, who I had just slammed the door on. Tom looked at his mom, who had a deer-in-the-headlights look. She tried to sputter excuses, and my Asil tried to defend my Emil, but Tom stood firm. He said they had lost access to him and any extension of him since they chose Talia. My in-laws, aside from SIL, left, and we haven't spoken since. Attempts at reconciliation. Fast forward to last week, I got a text from an unknown number, and it was my MIL. She said she saw a picture of my boys from a mutual friend's post and wanted to reconcile. She said she'd keep Talia away this time, and that ever since she got cut off, she's been in minimal contact with Talia anyway. Her Facebook begs to differ. I told her as much, saying I knew BS when I smelled it, and she made her choice. I told Tom about it and asked if he missed his family. He shrugged, saying he doesn't care, and it's been a relief not having his mom around. He's the youngest of 3 sons, so he was always the baby boy. I've since received texts from my brothers-in-law, their wives, and my SIL begging for a second chance. My MIL always wanted to be a grandma, and I do feel like I'm robbing her of a chance since her other sons haven't had children yet and also cut her off when we did. But you can't undo nearly a decade of disrespect with wishes and wants. And Talia is still in the picture, so I'm skeptical about how long that promise will last. I feel like I'm being callous. But there are so many stories I could tell about Talia's disregard for Tom's boundaries and mine, and I don't want to welcome a storm into my house by opening the gates. Clarification and update. To clarify, Tom did not cheat on Talia with me. He broke up with Talia after a few platonic hangouts with me. You could argue it was an emotional affair, loosely, but there was no physical romance or overlap. He only asked me out after he broke up with Talia, and I accepted after he confirmed via texts that he had broken up with her while visiting home. So, for anyone who thinks I was the other woman and that's why my Emil hates me, no, he didn't cheat. Okay, so first off, thanks to everyone who supported me on my first post. I just wanted to clarify a few things since I was pretty emotional when I wrote the original post and worded some things weirdly. The timeline goes like this. Tom and Talia were essentially forced to hang out since childhood, and Talia developed a crush. They got together in 7th grade. Tom left for college and met me. We hung out platonically and found we had more in common than he did with Talia. He went home and broke things off with her. He asked me out the following week, and it took 4 dates before I even started to view him as a serious potential partner. See, no overlap of relationships, no affair, no reason for all those comments saying I was wrong for being the other woman. Also, thanks to the people who defended me against those comments. And before anyone says, "You're being awfully defensive, you must have cheated," I'm defensive because I view adultery as a crime nobody can come back from. In my culture, adultery is very common. Studies show 55% of married Indians have committed it, so it's a sensitive subject. Also, to clarify, Talia is the one who wore the white dress to the Indian wedding and attempted to wear the red dress to the American wedding. I know a few people were confused about that too. So, on to the update. We've remained no contact with my MIL after receiving a few more messages from that number. Tom and I wrote a reply that went something like this. Dear Mill, you have repeatedly shown you don't care about Tom and my feelings about multiple things. I'm sorry if our relationship broke apart that fantasy you had of Talia being your daughter-in-law, but the fact is, it wasn't going to happen. Talia has been a constant thorn in our relationship. Both you and she have been passive-aggressive, rude, oblivious, and snide in your remarks and actions toward us. You said you would refuse to come to the weddings if Talia wasn't invited, which you knew would make Tom look bad to my elders who, unlike you, have since accepted him as one of our own. You allowed Talia to belittle me, comment about me, joke about me, and if I ever tried to joke back, you'd say, "That's not nice, she was just joking." Funny how jokes were pretty one-sided in that house. You made it very clear that Talia is the daughter you always wanted, which is why SIL cut you off when we did. The only reason your sons stay is because they know if they leave, you'll die with no kids to mourn you, since you nitpick their wives now that I'm no longer around too. Be the scapegoat. I have screenshots of everything between you and Talia, and texts from both of you mocking ones and threatening ones. If you try to come after me for grandparents' rights, I will get my attorney, and I will make sure you keep your racist ass away. From my family, with all due respect, please leave us alone. You were fine not talking to us before we had kids. Maybe Talia can finally move on and give you grandkids. Sincerely, the OP family. Aftermath and boyfriend's proposal drama. I then blocked their numbers and set all my social media to private. Tom did as well, and we've talked to family about going private and unfriending. People who may have ties to my MIL or Talia. Things have been quiet since then. I know Talia has seen the post since she screenshotted it and sent it to Tom via one of those apps you can get a spare number through. He sent a few laughing emojis before telling her he knows about the post and blocking her. Tom has always had my back like this. Even when Talia was in the picture, he and Esil would do little things to show we were a united front. I know a lot of people gave Tom grief in the last post for not standing up for me, but keeping my Emil in check was like a circus act, and my aunties are gossips to their core. Once during a family barbecue, Talia spilled cola on my sundress, and Tom accidentally poured his water over her head while talking to Essil as they walked past. It was like a Cold War, and as of right now, we finally seem to be winning. I got a message saying that Talia coming to my weddings was comparable to Camilla going to Diana and Charles's wedding, and now that I look back at it, it kind of was, only Talia will always be the ex. If my ML or Talia does something, I'll be sure to come back. So hopefully it doesn't happen again. Thank you all for your support. Second story, boyfriend's botched proposal. Next story. My boyfriend tried to propose at our best friend's wedding, but I stopped him in front of everyone. Then he ignored me for the rest of the night and said I ruined everything by rejecting him. I'm 26, F, and my boyfriend is 25, M. We attended a mutual friend's wedding. They're very close to us and actually brought my boyfriend and me together. My boyfriend and I are coming up on our 3-year anniversary, and things were getting pretty serious. Serious enough that I very much wanted to marry him. He's sweet, chatty, typically considerate, and empathetic. He's the person I thought was the first to show me what a truly healthy and compassionate relationship was like. He's very serious about us too. We've had long talks about marriage, and it seemed we were in agreement, with no formal declaration. We had even gotten as far as looking at rings, so the chance of a proposal was more of a when, not if. A few weeks before the wedding, we were hanging out with the engaged couple. The topic of weddings was very prevalent, and my boyfriend had cracked a joke about proposing at our friend's wedding. The groom-to-be joked back and said that it'd be funny as hell. This was followed by me and the bride-to-be both shutting it down, trying to be serious, but also not thinking he was serious. He was. During the reception, everyone had made their speeches, and people were getting their food. While our table was waiting, my boyfriend went up to the DJ, and after they played my boyfriend and my favorite song to scream sing in the car together, Story of My Life by One Direction, I looked at him, smiling, and he was looking around. All of a sudden, he grabbed a fork, stood up, and began clanging on a glass. Immediately, the whole dining room looked over. I stood up and whispered the words, "Not right now." His face dropped, and he yelled a mix of, "I'm sorry, I was just joking." After he sat back down, I verbatim said, "Let them have their moment. Let's make this our own." He wouldn't even look at me. When it was time to get our food, he immediately went toward the exit. I followed and tried to catch up to him, but couldn't find him. I texted him twice and called him a couple of times, but got no answer. So I went back to the reception. After not hearing from him for about an hour and a half or so, he returned, sat down, and didn't even look at me. The rest of the night was terrible. He looked like his dog just died, and I was trying to make the best out of the night, but felt like I was just in his shadow. I was prepping for a breakdown or maybe a fight in the car, but the only thing he said was, "I don't want to talk about it right now." And the drive was just quiet and awkward. He sent me a long text about how hard it was to get the ring, how he felt rejected by his closest person, and that I embarrassed him. I tried to explain that it's not that I didn't want to marry him. It was our best friend's wedding, and they deserved their moment, that we should create our own and not piggyback off theirs. He got offended and said that if I wanted to marry him, I wouldn't have stopped his proposal in front of everybody. This situation perplexes me. I've never seen the appeal of proposing at someone else's wedding, and tried to handle the situation in a way that I felt was calm and chill, but he's very adamant that I ruined the proposal and made him look like an idiot. Am I missing something? Should I admit I was wrong and have just let his proposal go at our friend's wedding? Proposal update. Hi all, this is an update. I responded to a few comments, but before proceeding with our convo, I read almost every comment, hoping to gain new perspectives and see the situation I presented from a different light. After I got home from the wedding, my boyfriend and I texted back and forth. After he went to bed, I made my post because I absolutely felt like an idiot. I was second-guessing everything and thought the night would have gone better if I had just let him do his thing. After seeing the responses to my post, I'm more solidified that I made the right decision. Yes, the night was ruined, but I'd be more comfortable with my life moving forward. I gave my boyfriend and myself a day to think about this and come back, with clearer heads. That was yesterday. I took a lot of people's advice and tried to reflect on if this behavior was a grand showing of any smaller reaction. The stonewalling isn't super new in fights. At the start of our relationship, he would get quiet and make a small showing of secluding himself. I'd counter this by giving my boyfriend his space and telling him that moving forward, to just say, he didn't have the words to talk about it, and we can reconvene when we're ready to talk. This worked for us. It gave him time to choose his words. We'd have a good discussion of what went wrong and how we could fix it moving forward. I didn't think that he was overtly trying to make me feel worse by the silent treatment back then. However, ignoring me for the rest of our time at the wedding hurt so much. Not even saying I just need space right now, and rejecting to hold my hand by pulling away felt like he was pseudo-counter-rejecting me. This was a first. I felt like he was trying to make me feel worse through his lack of communication. That's all I noticed. I've had a partner be verbally abusive to me before, and another who wasn't willing to talk about things they did wrong, refusing to take any blame. My boyfriend hasn't done any of that. I'm not saying I recognize all patterns of abuse, but I'd say I'm versed in a few. There's also been no real history of me constantly catering to him, as others were asking. If either person had strong feelings, one way or another in different scenarios, we'd often be fine with that person getting their way. Otherwise, if we both didn't care all that much, he loves to use a wheel-spinning website to make decisions. And I think it's cute. We met earlier. Today. He came over, and we sat in my living room. He broke down. He vehemently apologized and said he felt like an idiot. He said he had been reflecting all of yesterday and talking to his dad about the situation. His dad got mad at him and talked him off his ego crash. His words, not mine. He had already sent a message to our friends who are now flying to their honeymoon in Western Europe, apologizing for making their most important day about him and for not properly celebrating them. I asked why he neglected our conversation from months before. He said that the groom and their group of friends had egged him on in private not to propose at the wedding, but to do it soon. He didn't originally plan on doing it at the wedding. He's had the ring with him for about a month, never had any real plan, and wanted it to just be spontaneous. He told me he got caught up in the atmosphere of the wedding, saw his best friend with his girl, and couldn't stop picturing us in the same scenario. His urge overran his common sense in his terms, and he made a choice he ultimately wishes he could take back. It very much spiraled from there. I noted that while his heart was in the right place, that doesn't excuse the storm he put me through. After I expressed to him that ignoring me really hurt me, and that him saying my rejection to his proposal was the reason for his embarrassment and shutdown was unfair, especially since we had already established for him not to do that. He accepted this and continued to apologize, admitting it was very unfair of him and that he should have handled his emotions and embarrassment better, especially towards me. We had a lull in our conversation after he asked, "Where do we go from here?" At this point, I didn't want to just return back to normal, a day where I expressed to him that I felt the prettiest in a long time, expected us to have enormous fun, and watch our best friends have their moment to shine, turned into a day where I was crying in my room reading Reddit comments about how I should break up with him. I genuinely thought I was the one who should have just bitten the bullet and accepted a proposal in a way that I and others thought wasn't okay. I told him that if we were to move forward, he needed to seek a therapist to help him manage his emotions, not only from this, but other signs that he may have a panic disorder. My mom works for a mental health clinic and has offered resources before. I said that I needed time to rebuild my trust in him. He understood and is going to seek mental health resources through my mom's clinic. Until then, we'll be on a week. Or so break with an open channel of communication. He's going to find appropriate channels to better himself, and I'm going to take myself on a mini vacation after the emotional roller coaster that was this weekend. We did talk about what each other's ideal proposal was, something we should have talked about before the trigger was even pulled on it. I said that I didn't care for anything fancy, I just prefer it not to be public. He said that he wanted to make a grand showing of love to me and didn't care where or how. He asked if it was okay to have friends and family present, or if that broke my public rule. I said that was fine and was happy with the communicative compromise. I also stated that I didn't want to be proposed to for a while so that we could let this situation rest and figure ourselves out from here. He accepted this. Something I thought was really sweet that I wanted to mention was that before he left, he said, "I do think I owe you some dancing." And so we slow danced in my living room for about half an hour until he left. A small and romantic action, perhaps, to earn brownie points, but the conversation did reassure me that he's willing to try and be better. He recognized he was in the wrong, and that a joyful day was robbed by pride and not rejection. This was about as ideal of an outcome as I'd hoped. Thank you all for taking time out of your days to reply and bring me back to earth. Thank you to those who messaged me in private to make sure I was okay or to give input. While the future is still obscure, it's a little clearer than it was a couple of days ago. I have a clearer understanding now of what I want and what's healthy moving forward. I will do every ounce of weighing before I enter what should be the most important commitment you can make to a person you love, and I'll keep a more careful eye on his behaviors and how he may react to adverse situations. I hope the best for you all, as many have for me.